Hi, my name is Toby. I am 27 years old, and my occupation consists of research on historical phenomenon. Occasionally, I am forced to step out of my comfort zone to take a look at something, whether it be an old doll or anything generic like that. Those are bearable, as it's part of my job to examine such things. But there was one thing in particular. One thing that you would never think to be different. I received a phone call early last Saturday. It seemed to be a regular client. He didn't seem like he wanted to talk for very long. His tone was rushed and he barely responded to any questions I asked him. He told me that he had an old VHS tape he found buried in his garage, and he wanted me to check it out. But before I could even agree to checking it out, he just thanked me and hung up. Now, I'm not complaining about it. It's not often I get to check out something like that, so it piqued my interest. Plus, I had an old VCR I received from months before, so I was definitely gonna see what was up. A few days after I received the call, a package came in the mail. The label on the wrapping read, Disney in black marker, but nothing else. I thought I hit the jackpot, not just because Disney was one of the biggest in animating ever, and getting an old tape like that was huge for someone like me, but also because I had a son, Max, who loved that kind of stuff. I thought it would make for some great father-son time, to sit down and watch some old cartoons, so we did just that. Now, before I tell you what we saw, please be aware that the content that you are about to listen to is intensely disturbing, and if you expect there to be an answer to any of it, there isn't one. I would advise you that you listen with caution. The episode on the tape, White Noise. The episode started with Mickey walking down a dirt trail toward what seemed to be a small warehouse with a plane in front of it. He had on the same silly grin he always did in his old cartoons, except every now and then, the film in the tape would shift out of place, and I could swear it looked like he was just dragging his body in mid-air while he was moving. Eventually, he reached the warehouse and walked up to the plane. This is where it gets weirder. Mickey climbed into the plane and ignited the engine, so naturally the propeller started to run. He then climbed back out of the plane and stood in front of it, tapping his foot with a concerned look on his face. Then he grinned and stuck his hand in the propeller. His expression then turned to dread as he started to scream while his hand was being mutilated. Max grabbed a hold of my arm as we watched in horror. Mickey then pulled his arm away from the propeller, stared at it for a moment, then began to smile. Then he turned his face towards the screen as it slowly panned toward him. Then it cut to black. I looked at Max. He was crying. He looked up at me and asked me what had happened. I couldn't tell him as I didn't know either. I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what would happen, but I assured him that it would get better if we just kept watching, and he trusted me. He shouldn't have. I should have just gotten him out of there while he had seen what he did. It gets stranger. The black screen then cut to Mickey standing in the corner of a dark room, nodding rapidly with a huge grin on his face. Max felt some sort of reassurance over this for some reason, as there wasn't anything utterly disturbing happening. Barely anything was visible, but occasionally, by looking closely, we could see Mickey twitching violently. After a few seconds or so, the screen started to slowly pan out, away from Mickey, so it became even harder to see. We leaned in to try and get a better look. Huge mistake. As we leaned in to see better, the screen then rapidly spat into Mickey's face and brightened, revealing a gruesome, clawed, torn-up face with a massive grin, bearing human-like teeth, along with noticeably bloodshot eyes. Max went ballistic. He started to scream as he clung to my arm, as if for dear life. He started to cry as I held him close to my chest. Then he looked up at me. "Daddy, why is Mickey being so scary?" he asked as tears streamed down his face, still sobbing. I told him I didn't know. I had never in my life seen anything as horrifying as that, let alone in a Disney cartoon which is made for children. I told Max to leave. I didn't want him to watch any more of it. He had seen enough. I wasn't sure that I wanted to keep watching myself, but I had to. I had to. Not because I'm an idiot, and it certainly wasn't because I wanted to write some cheesy campfire story, but for the sake of curiosity. It was literally pulling me in. I had to finish it. There was no way I could stop it. The episode then cut to a straight line of text in front of a jet black background. Ha 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 ha. No noise at all. Just text. It then abruptly jumped to the mutilated Mickey face, closer to the screen than before, and a loud, hyper-distorted moan rang through the speakers. I closed my eyes to attempt to avoid the image, but I could still see it faintly. After a few moments, everything stopped. I heard a faint, fuzzy sound. I opened my eyes and looked up at the screen, to be met with static. I thought it was over. I let out a sigh of relief and reached for the remote sitting beside me. No. I stopped and looked back at the screen to find the static slowly fading, revealing a plain white Mickey face buried beneath the static. My mouth hung open while I stared at the mouse. It spoke to me. It knew. I was trying to turn off the TV. "How did you?" I said, whispering to the screen. Mickey smiled, sporting a massive, toothy grin. It hurt me. "Your heart will suffer greatly," it said in a stern, deep voice. A series of ha-has then flashed rapidly in front of the static, along with a loud screeching sound. I had to cover my ears. It was so loud. The remote was right next to me. I could have at least tried to end it, but the horrid sound made it hard to move my hands from my ears. It didn't stop. I didn't care anymore. I didn't care if I went deaf just to stop it. I reached for the remote and shut it off. My ears rang for a good few minutes, but luckily they didn't explode. I looked over to the doorway to find Max standing there. I scolded him for not listening to me when I told him to stay away, but he didn't hear me. His eyes were glued to the screen and he was frozen solid. "It's not over," he said, while staring at the screen. What? What do you mean?" I asked him, but he didn't respond. Then the TV turned on. The TV turned itself on. I looked back to the screen to find what seemed to be a snuff recording of Cinderella's castle at Disneyland. I looked back over to Max. He gave me a quick glance, then redirected his attention to the screen. How the hell did he know it wasn't over? How the hell could he know? The episode then cut to the park versions of the mascots in what seemed to be a dank basement, standing perfectly in a line, facing the camera. I urged Max to get out once more, as if I could predict what was going to happen, but he wouldn't move. He just stared. The mascots then reached to their sides. "Max, get out," I yelled at him. He didn't move. They pulled out knives. "Get out, Max," I yelled louder. He remained frozen and slit their own throats. "Max," I screamed. They started thrashing around the room, spraying blood all over the floor and walls of the dimly lit room, then dropped to the ground. Max just stared at the bloody mess while I tried desperately to hold back vomit. The episode then ended with a still shot of the lifeless costumes, with one of them holding a plain white card, with the words, "The End," scribbled onto it in the Disney font. I looked over to Max. He was staring at me now, with a wide grin on his face. He then raised his hand from his side, revealing a knife. He spoke. "Suffer," he said. He then jabbed the knife into his throat and dropped to the floor. I screamed and rushed over to him, trying my hardest to talk him through the sobs and screams, even when I knew he was already gone. I looked over to the TV, and in the middle of the screen, I saw the plain white Mickey face, laughing, staring at me. Then it spoke to me once more. "The darkest of secrets lie within the brightest of smiles." Then the TV shut off, and I was left alone with my son's lifeless body. I started to cry as I buried my face into Max's chest, holding onto his hand as it all came to a close. But my crying ceased, and I let go of my son's hand as I looked up to the screen and mumbled the same words he had said before when I thought it was over. "It is not over yet." If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, because there are more chilling tales to be told. Also, check out my other social media profiles. The links for those are down in the description. Thanks for listening.